Good afternoon to beautiful Boulder, Colorado, which has been here for a little while. I've been here for 36 years, so it's beautiful here. If you need some advice about someplace to go or look at, I'm happy to provide that information. I'm James Brody. I'm the director of the Musicians Wellness Program at University of Colorado, College of Music, Boulder, which has been a designated program of excellence in the college since 2000. And I have a whole bunch of stuff to share with you today. And it's going to be along these lines. We're going to talk a little bit about body mapping, whole body, but specifically we're going to take a look at arms today because I hear that trumpet players use arms. We're going to be talking about some Alexander technique principles. And I'll preface everything that I'm going to say today, almost in its entirety, is fact-based or anatomically based. Every once in a while I'll offer an opinion, but for the most part, it's fact-based. And a number of strategies that you can employ right away. One of the best things that most important things I think that I teach is people how to rest. Maybe some intelligent practice concepts if we have time, and other stuff that just might end up being helpful. Now, we're going to be getting in and out of our chairs several times, so if you want to clear your deck or something and make sure that you're not having anything because you're going to be sitting and standing, so I'm going to be doing some stuff. Very briefly, the Musicians Wellness Program, I started this back in 1998 because too many people, after they heard about my background, were coming to me because they were experiencing injury. I see some of you have your phones out. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to share my email with you. I'll send these slides to you if you want. This is not copywritten. I'm not invested in this. You're welcome to have them, okay? So that way you don't have to take out your phone and wear it down a little bit. So this is a comprehensive program that deals with what you see above here. I teach wellness classes. We have great medical liaisons directly across the street, including not just for physical health, but we have an embedded psychotherapist in the College of Music. Comes to us from counseling and psychiatric services. It's a godsend for our students, absolutely. And not that far away, it's about a 5-minute walk to the Speech and Hearing Center. Students can go there to have their hearing tested. If you have not had your hearing tested at all, or not recently, get it done. It's very important to have a baseline hearing test at some point in your life. If you're a trumpet player, you're playing a loud instrument. It's like a toss-up between trumpet and piccolo. So, have you ever been near a piccolo? Oh my golly, it's loud. And also our students can get reduced priced hearing protection. I mean, real stuff, not foam earplugs, but the real stuff that's tunable. So basically I see my job as providing assistance to our students, critically important information for their ongoing study and their career, really. Anybody ever felt like that? Try to get sorted out there. If you can't read it, it says, "We'll soon have you sorted out, Mr. Fenton." And my favorite part of this is his hand coming out where his leg should be. I know I've felt like that on occasion, trying to get myself arranged. Barbara Conable was one of my main mentors, and she would oftentimes start off her discussions with musicians with this fill in the blank phrase. How would you fill that in? Play. I guess that's the definitive answer. Yes.
Share.
Share. Ooh, I like sharing. Perform. Teach. Struggle. I'm waiting for wait tables. I haven't heard that one yet. Every musician that I know of has to do one thing. One thing is shared by all musicians. I hear that if you don't move, no sound comes out. So we need to know something about the way that we move. Doesn't that make sense? To have accurate information about our movement capabilities. Barbara would also say this, and I follow that up by saying, play with intention. If you're doing something, make sure that you're doing what you intend to do. Now, as we're all learning, sometimes it takes a while to figure out what that is. But you ask for help if you need it then. My aunt, when I was 12 years old, I got a UNICEF calendar. So it was a weekly calendar, and I have no idea. I probably didn't write a single thing in there. It's like, it's 12-year-old? What? Play, go to school, sleep. I mean, I didn't have a whole big schedule there. But what was cool is that there were a whole bunch of pictures of kids, and I came across this about 10 years ago, and I thought, oh, this is perfect, because I can use this to demonstrate some things for my students. This little dude, probably 3, 4 years old. He's someplace in the Far East, huge piece of statuary there. He's doing it just right. Would you mind trying to see if you can knock out those 2 middle banks of lights there? Because I think it would be nicer to be able to see this with a little bit more clarity. Good luck. There's only about 15 switches over there, so it's going to be a little, if he gets it the first time, I'm going to scream. That's close. One right next to it. No, that one's, no, yeah, there you go. That one. Great. Well done, sir. Well done. Give him $5. He's doing this exactly right. He's pushing off on his right foot there. You see the toes are activated onto the left, just the outside of the left foot. Right arm going forward with the left foot. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now, it's not supposed to be like this. And if you're a gunslinger, maybe. Or if you didn't crawl enough when you were a kid. Oftentimes, that will be, people will walk with same hands. Head beautifully balanced on his spine. He's looking down, but his head's beautifully balanced there. If he's thinking anything, it's probably something along the lines of, it's big toes. Oh, big gold toes, really big. A friend of mine sent me this picture of her kid on pool day. Just drop the kid by the pool, and that's what kids do. They balance. Now, at that age, head outsized to body, and the musculature in your around your core, which is different than most people think of. Sometimes it's not developed enough, and so kids this age will look like they're hammered. You know, just bounce around a little bit like that. Another picture sent by a friend of her kid and her dad. Little Timmy here is demonstrating perfect zombie piano technique. But you know, that's what he's got. If the keyboard's there, that's where you put your arms. But Grandpa is doing something else. What word or phrase would you use to describe what Grandpa's doing?
Slouch.
Slouch? Hunch? Slump? Note that Grandpa's pelvis, look at little Timmy's pelvis here. Beautiful. He's sitting right on his sits bones. We'll talk about those later. He's curled back and under. Little Timmy's doing a great job of being upright, not straight. You don't want a straight spine. I've had one. You don't want it. Or how to get it, which was a whiplash injury. Guy hit me from behind at 50 miles an hour, no brakes. Really strong curve here, and he's doing really wonderful things to his neck. Come on out, buddy. There we go. I started doing this so I could pack my skeleton in my suitcase if I needed to, because I got tired of getting pulled over at TSA. You know, guys going, ooh, runs through the machine, yeah. Say hello to my little friend. Uh-oh. This poor guy's just fallen completely apart. Shit. Well, we won't look at that. Here's what Grandpa's doing. If we go from upright, here's what Grandpa's doing. It's that much. What's the consequence or series of consequences that's going to come out of that? Tension? Pain, quite possibly, because you're smashing these discs. Discs are there to cushion, but after a while they wear out if you're doing that really hard. That's a lot of work. So if you're not doing that already, go ahead and just collapse over a little bit and try to take a good breath. There's so much interference. That's a word you're going to hear me say over and over again. So much interference in that he's not getting very good air into his system at all. Oh, poor dude. He's falling apart. Sadly, we have no shortage of slumping pictures available to us. This is my stepson's third grade baseball coach. Lovely man, terrific slumper. This is at my parents' 60th wedding anniversary. This is a classic picture of head forward, neck forward, lordotic back, hip, pelvis tilted, knees locked, Anybody recognize this guy? Anybody know Tom Battenberg? Played trumpet in the Columbus, Ohio Symphony for 50 years. Very talented man. Nice guy, too. Look at the amount of work she's doing. Her sternocleidomastoid muscle is really strongly, and look, I mean, there are linebackers who would, go for that kind of musculature development there. That woman is in pain. That didn't happen overnight. It took her some decades, but she's done a really good job of that. If I were to work with her, I probably wouldn't be able to do much to help her, because it's this powerful, strong musculature. We'd really have to work at it. Brilliant scientist, great slumper. Oh, come on, really? Really? How many bad models do we need? So, some people will say that slumping is, oh, I'm just relaxing. Okay, York, you go over there. I'm just relaxing. Oh, I'm just gonna relax. I'm gonna stand that up. Does that look relaxed to you? That's not relaxed. It takes more effort to do that slumping than it does to be balanced. You've probably all done this or something like it at some point. I am barely exerting any effort to have this be upright. The further off balance I am, the more effort I have to use. It's the same way with us. The further off balance we are, the more effort we have to utilize. My students will ask me, so, Professor Brody, when do kids start to slump? And I say, apparently luau day. This young woman is beautifully upright. Her 70-year-old friend over here is in a massive collapse, same age, two very different responses. So all of this is to say that slumping is not natural to us. Slumping is learned behavior. You have to learn how to slump. Kids don't do it. Kids don't slump until luau day. And when you're in a slump, you're not in for much fun. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. I'm going to write a Dr. Seuss Alexander technique volume sometime. I do not want that tension there. I do not want it anywhere. That kind of thing. It just kind of writes itself. Okay, well, what is the Alexander technique? A tool. Oh, it's something we can use. That's cool. Awareness. Whoa, what a great idea. Changing habits. Okay. Thinking and movement. That's why we have psychophysical here. Thinking and movement. John Dewey. Has anybody read any of John Dewey's work? American philosopher. A little chewy, isn't it? That stuff is it's pretty dense, but he's a brilliant man. He thought Alexander's work was incredible. And this is what he called Alexander's principles. Thinking in activity. That's 3 words, not 2. We don't want to elide those 2. Thinking in activity, which is fine on occasion, except when you've all had this happen to you. You're behind the wheel of your car, and you kind of come to, right? It's not that you've been asleep. It's just that you haven't really been paying attention. Okay, yeah, I'm back. Yeah, right. Look in the rearview mirror, child care situation you just drove through. And re-education, because as we're going to find out, we knew how to do this stuff all along. We knew how to be effortlessly upright all along. We interfere with that, so we need to be re-educated in order to be able to use our mind and body together. And there's the man himself, dapper gentleman that he was. So Alexander was born in Tasmania. Does anybody know where Tasmania is?
South of Australia.
South, yeah. In fact, I have a map. Tasmania. Do we know why Caucasians first went to Australia?
Imperialism.
Well, that's imperialism is absolutely right, but it was a prison colony for the British Empire. Okay, here's a bad joke. So this guy goes to Australia for the first time, puts down his passport at passport control. Agent says, "You got a prison record?" The guy said, "I didn't know that was still a requirement." This, if you've never looked at pictures of Tasmania, I encourage you to do so. Oh my gosh. It's mind-bogglingly beautiful. Just incredible. With these rivers that run through these gorges that are pretty much impassable, and forests where the vegetation grows sideways. Sideways. So this was a pretty rough and tumble DIY kind of place. Oh, not to mention trying to take a boat across. Good luck. It's a very violent kind of place. So this is the atmosphere that Alexander grew up in. He caught the acting bug very early. If you were a colony member of the British Empire and you had one book in your house, what do you think it would be? Bible. If you had two books, the complete works of Shakespeare, wouldn't you think? Being British and all that. So he got the acting bug. Oldest son, you're going to be a business person. He was very successful, very young. He was apparently a very compelling individual. But he wanted to act so desperately. So he went to Melbourne, took that passage and went to Melbourne, and he became an actor and was quite successful quite quickly. But then he began to lose his voice in performance. That's pretty tough. That'd be like getting focal dystonia in your embouchure. It's like, it's gone. What do you do? Well, he did what most people would do. He went to see a doctor. And the doctors all said to him, "We can't find any pathology, no disease. So just rest. Oh, and maybe drink this special elixir that's really expensive. It's probably mostly alcohol." So then he was able to return to acting, but he had this recurring loss of function. That's why we have the circle here. It was a non-virtuous circle that he existed in. So I don't know how many times around it went, but he got to this point, the physician consultation, and he did something that I don't think I would have had the intelligence or courage to do. He stopped and said, "There's nothing wrong with me. I'm doing this to myself. This is a self-inflicted situation. So I'm the only one who can do something about it." And that's words of wisdom for all of us. It's like, you're in charge. You are in charge of you. When people talk to me and they say, "You know, this arm keeps," I said, wait a minute, it's not this arm, it's your arm. Own your body. This shoulder keeps coming up. Oh my God, there it goes. You're doing it. You may not be aware you're doing it, but you're the one who's doing it. You're in charge. So over time, we're going to go through a couple of situations here shortly. Over time, he developed these principles and conceptions, and I'm going to share these basic ideas with you, and then we'll execute a few. Primary control is a name that he gave to what we have in us right from birth, or this impulse for effortless uprightness. It's in there, it's installed at the factory. Unless there's something damaged, neurological damage, we can do it. You watch kids move, and for the most part, they move as those pictures I showed you. Downward pull is interference. It's oftentimes a response to a stimulus, and when we respond to that stimulus, we react by pulling down. Literally, I drop my head back by pulling down with my neck, and that translates through my entire body. I can also come out of that. Constructive conscious control. I'm going to parse that out. So we want to apply thoughtful responses to anything that would create the stimulus for downward pull. Constructive versus judgmental. That sounds pretty good to me. Instead of, "Oh, be flat, missed it again." It's a little judgmental, and we are trained to be judgmental. And if you haven't been trained to be judgmental, you just haven't taken that class yet, because musicians are so judgmental of themselves. I'm compelled to tell this story for the first time in front of a large group of people because it involves a trumpet. When I was in school getting my doctorate at Indiana University, I was standing outside of the main old music building. Yeah? Are you from Indiana?
Yeah, we're all full staters.
Okay. Do you know where I'm talking about? You know, outside of the main building there? I don't know if there's still those plaster-walled practice rooms on the 3rd floor. Yeah. Now they're still there? I never practiced in there because you sound too good. So, I mean, it really was, it was just a very welcoming kind of atmosphere. So, no, I need to be across the street in those little refrigerators because then I really hear how bad I am. So, a friend of mine and I were talking there, and we heard a bit of a commotion in one of the practice rooms. It was a trumpet player who was having difficulty that day, and it seemed to be escalating. And finally, there was a flurry of notes, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a glint of metal, and down comes the trumpet. Made such a cool sound when it hit the concrete. It was just, I can't imitate it. Followed by the case, and the music, autumn leaves begin to fall, and then, and there he is! Ah! He kicks everything into the bushes, and I don't know what happened to him, but that's not the right reaction, I don't think. It's a little bit judgmental, a little bit crazy too, a little self-recrimination there. Control, as in guidance rather than domination. I have you in my control. We're going to play around with that in just a few minutes. So Alexander observed himself, and he saw what he was doing pretty quickly and made numerous attempts to see if he could set aside those issues. And it wasn't until he came up with the concept of inhibition that he was able to do so reliably. John Dewey, the American educational philosopher, very fond of Alexander's work, encouraged him not to use this term because when you get your Freudian inhibition on one side, which is more like suppression, but what Alexander didn't know but was an intuitive genius about was that we have inhibitory neurons in our brain. Most of them are excitatory, but there's a group that are inhibitory. And what we want to do is marshal the forces of inhibitory neurons to stop doing something. When we discover that something is interference, we want to be able to stop doing that. We want to do more. Well, maybe if I do this and this, no, wait a minute. All you wanted to do was stop that, but now you're doing 6 other things, but you haven't still stopped the original thing. This is part of the brilliance of his work. And then once you've removed the interference, you can cooperate with primary control and you can go back to normal functioning. I'll get back to faulty sensory perception in just a second. This is what inhibition is about. It sort of makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Well, yeah, we could pause, reframe, rethink, rather than just diving in, slamming our head against the wall one more time. Pause, rethink. And this could be about anything. Truly. So back to faulty sensory perception. In my 40 plus years of experience with this, it's clear to me that we often do not know what it is that we are doing. I recently encountered this with a young student who was getting very frustrated, and so we have a beautiful wellness space upstairs. If you haven't been up to the 3rd floor, third floor is a little bit like it looks like a minimum security prison up there, but it's not much color. But if you go all the way to the end of the hall, you can see our really nice wellness space up there. Great set of mirrors for students to work in. So I asked her just to watch herself in the mirror. Okay, she's a violinist, so she's playing along, and I was just fussing with some work, watching her a little bit out of the corner of my eye. After about 2 minutes, she stopped. And I looked at her, and she said these words. I had no idea. When she finally looked, she saw our great American philosopher Yogi Berra. We all know who Yogi Berra was. Perhaps the greatest catcher who ever played the game of baseball. As my dad used to say, not the brightest bulb in the marquee. One of my favorites from him is nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded. Wait a minute, if it's too, when you get to a fork in the road, take it. How can you think and hit at the same time? That's absolutely true. You cannot hit a baseball if you're in conscious thought. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Another person, this is a couple years ago, what I do at the beginning of the semester is a sort of a baseline. I video record everybody doing their thing. Trumpet playing, singing, whatever it might be. This person happened to be a singer. Then I said, okay, great. We worked together a little bit. I sent him off to watch it on his own. Came back a couple of days later. We're watching it together. 45 seconds in, I swear he said this to me. He turned to me and he said, "I don't do that." Okay. That's you. So what he could have said a little bit more accurately, said, "I didn't know I was doing that." So how about let's do one of Mr. Alexander's little ideas. Observe yourself right now. Nobody moves. Just observe where you are in space. What's going on? You're crossing your arms. You've done that before. You have your arms like this. You've done that before. That's not a thing that I do. That's not one of my habits. And if you wanted to make a change, what would you do if you wanted to make a change in where you are right now? You're allowed to move now if you want to. Okay, I see a lot of sort of, quote, sitting up straight. Did your parents ever? "Sit up straight, young man." That's well-meaning, but it's not very helpful advice. Because then we're forcing, and what we want to do is balance. So more on that soon. So we're going to imitate Mr. Alexander and hopefully not create the same kind of problems that he created for himself. So in order to do that, we need to stand. So please stand up. One of Mr. Alexander's acting teachers told him the following: "Take hold of the floor with the outside of your feet." Try that on. Why would you want to do that? Any thoughts? Yeah, the gravity might just give up at any moment and up you go. Why would you want to do that?
So he fits as an actor out rather than in.
Maybe.
It's really grounding.
Grounding, yeah, grounded. Trees are grounded. We're built to move. So as soon as you do that, one of the most magnificent things that we have at our disposal is removed from our capability. Well, but that's what he was taught to do, so that's what he did. Now, some of you in the room are old enough to remember John Lovitz on Saturday Night Live and his character, Master Thespian. If you go to YouTube and type in SNL, Master Thespian, you'll get some episodes where, "Dear Diary," I mean, everything was so overblown, complete histrionic to the nth degree. And his catchphrase was, "Acting thinker." That was the style of acting in Alexander's day. Big. Which went out with movies and television, because if you act that big, and the screen's right here, you're going to blow it up. The camera's right there, rather. So, okay. We're going to take hold of the floor with the outside of our feet. And then we have to get into a gesture thing, because that was the style of acting at that time, too, which goes back to ancient Greece, of course, right? What does this mean? "Oh, alas, woe is me." So we're going to do the first 6 words of Hamlet's famous soliloquy, "To be or not to be." And by the way, if you don't think punctuation matters, try this one on. "To be or not to be that is the question." That's not quite the meaning that Shakespeare had in mind. Okay, so we got the floor, then you got a gesture, and then last but not least, you're going to throw your head back so that you can reach the third balcony. That always helps. Throw your head back, gasp for air, and then we're going to go, okay? Ready? Get the grip, get the gesture, throw your head back, gasp. "To be or not to be." That's probably enough of that, right? Carry on with that for an hour. You'd lose your voice too. I mean, there's no way that's not sustainable. But he didn't quite understand that at the time. Oh, we want to do one other thing. When I was talking about control, guidance as opposed to domination, right? Fluid as opposed to rigid. So my stepson Jeremy, oh man, was he an amazing fielder in baseball. And I take some credit for that, because we'd get out in the street and I'd throw the ball in the neighbor's bushes, I'd throw it on the roof, I'd throw it over his head. He could, oh man, was he a great fielder. Couldn't hit the curveball. Not many of us can. So we're watching a baseball playoff game, and he had just instituted these new fast high-speed cameras. And so, you know, the pitcher releases the ball and you can see the stitches rolling, just like Ted Williams probably could in real life. It's all slowed down. Ted Williams apparently had the most amazing vision of all time. Just incredible. In any case, so we're watching, and it's going this slowly. The ball goes. It's a really great pitch. And so then the camera pans back, and you see the shortstop. And then gradually we see the batter too. and we see the batter and the ball come in, and when the ball hits the bat, this is what the shortstop does. Duck. Instantaneous movement. Not duck, too late. Duck. So I said, Jeremy, that's amazing. That guy's incredible. He said, well, being a shortstop, he says, well, you know, number one, he knows what the pitch is going to be. I think, okay, here we go. It's true. The catcher's sign, he knows what the pitch is going to be. He knows the batter's tendencies. He's seen thousands of ground balls hit. So there's that, but still, duck. So we're all going to be shortstops. Get into your nice shortstop, flex knees, nicely balanced, soft butt, not hard butt. Don't want a hard butt. Arms easy, and just dance around a little bit. Okay, now we're going to move. I'm going to give you direction to move, okay? So the ball's going to get hit, and you're going to move, okay? Move to your right. Right. You guys go to your right. I'm going the other direction. Right. Left. Left. Back in here. Tighten up your neck real good. Ready? Right. Right. That's not as much fun, is it? As soon as you tighten the musculature in your neck, you're communicating through your entire system. Fascia is amazing stuff. So you're just basically locking a whole bunch of stuff down. I wonder if that would have any influence on playing the trumpet. If you tightened your neck, what's going to happen? Well, we have more to say about that shortly. Okay, you can jump back into your seat if you like. I worked with three women who studied with Alexander, so I feel like I've got a pretty close line to the man himself. And my imagination is that somebody asked Alexander, after having some lessons with him, what are we supposed to do on our own? So he came up with what had been known since about 1910 as the directions. My neck to be free. What a great idea. I can't think of a reason to have a tight neck. My head to move forward and up. Now that's not Groucho Marx. But in downward pull, we tighten our neck, head rotates down, backwards and down. Back and down. Release your neck, and if you allow it, your head will reflexively move forward and up. You don't have to do anything. But most of us interfere so dramatically that I'm afraid of my neck. Why isn't it happening? Because you're not freeing your neck, really. Which will allow your back to lengthen and widen. Some people throw in something about the jaw, release your jaw. Some people throw in something about the knees, because most of us, when we stand up, spring, we lock our knees. Feels really solid. Well, you can't move very well from there either. So I came up with these 4 points. I was on a plane going someplace, and I thought, I need a new start for my talk today, later today, so I'm going to come up with this. So this is what I came up with. Alexander probably didn't have a whole lot of confidence about physicians because they could not figure out what was going on for him, and he did. So he figured, if anatomy is what they're based on, I don't need to know about anatomy. I know what I know, and that's going to be more than enough. Turns out, it's helpful to have some anatomical knowledge, I think. We'll talk about that very shortly. Habit. Behavior below the level of consciousness. You and your hands there. Hey, I tied my shoes today. That's habitual behavior. I didn't sit there going, okay, I know this could be done. I'm just not sure how. Oh. Buttons, what are buttons? I mean, these are all things that we do that's below the level of our consciousness, and thank goodness for that. If you had to relearn all that stuff, including language, including that, if you had a bed, you wouldn't get out of it. Because all the things that are below the level of consciousness that we do, terrific. Okay, it's my first day in the Cleveland Orchestra. What's up? All right. Don Juan, fantastic. Okay, got the music, got my fingering chart. Okay. D. Well, that looks a little complicated. E. Dum. Okay. Dum. Wait a minute. B. Well, that's easy. Okay. Bum. Oh, just added one more. Dum. D. No. No. That's what you want to be able to do. No interference. Good habits. How do we know what to address if we don't know what's going on? One of my students at our midterm last couple of months ago said, I asked for comments from the class, and her hand shoots up and she says, I am aware that I am not aware. Great. Because most of us aren't aware of what we're doing. So if we can boost our awareness, we have a choice. We can do conscious intention, and we can progress much more rapidly. This sounds really simple. And it is. Doesn't mean it's easy, but it is pretty simple if we can follow these basic principles. Body mapping was developed by William and Barbara Conable many years ago, back in the early 1970s. And they found that when they were working with their students, if they worked with these principles that we're going to talk about right now, body mapping, learning was much quicker. So figuring out what is a neck, what is an arm, in truth, actual, not like, oh, my arm is this thing over here. What is it that really can help? How big is it? How small is it? What's its function? How do we utilize it? So there's my side view of my skeleton. I hand this to the students in my classes, first day of class, and we have all kinds of fun with that. That's where I took it from, one of these standard medical anatomical charts that you'd see in a lot of different places. Oh, speaking of which, I don't have a mechanism to do this, but if that person were to back up into a wall, what would hit first? Your butt. That's not the way most people view uprightness, but your butt's the first thing that hits. Your heels will not be hitting. Your shoulder, if you're wearing a very blousy garment, that might be brushed, but your head won't be either. So if you think that uprightness is jamming yourself up against a wall and getting everything to touch, no, that's not it. This is a balance almost no one, including me, can achieve. It's almost fictional in that regard. And then right here, you probably can't read that, but it says physiologically efficient posture. I call him Mr. Pep, physiologically efficient posture. And there's a plumb line. We have all kinds of sophisticated tools now, but in the olden times, if you wanted to know what the perpendicular was, you put a plumb, P-L-U-M-B, usually a piece of lead, attach it to the, something up, wait till it stops, there's your perpendicular. Gravity works very well that way. So you can see that that plumb line runs through various spots in this person's body. We're going to study each one of these spots that are very important to our mapping here. On the other hand, this is a schematic of how the weight is distributed through your body. So weight is distributed a little bit more further forward here, towards the back, forward, back. The weight's distributed forward because your head's heavier in the front. So that's where the center of mass is. So clearly we don't have a single line running through us as we saw in the other diagram. It's a delicate well, not delicate, it's just a counterbalance. Works great if we allow it to. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is a British physical education instructor in Alexander's day. Chest forward, shoulders back. Makes a good target. You'll notice that oh God, we're missing some parts here. That plumb line can't run through there. Now, I don't know about your physical education classes, but when I was in, say, middle school, my physical didn't get educated very much in my physical education classes. This stuff, to me, is true physical education. So there's a depiction of the points of balance in our body. I'm not going to discuss all of these in detail today, but I can certainly provide resources for further exploration of this, should you want to. In fact, I have the revised edition of Barbara Conable's book, What Every Musician Needs to Know About the Body, which just came out, hot off the presses. And I remember, golly, how long ago was that? 25 years ago, maybe? When Barbara had a manuscript of her first edition, and she shared that with me, and we sat and talked about it. It was like an earth-shattering moment for me. It's like, this is going to make a big difference to a lot of people. AO joint, shoulders, we'll talk about why. Lumbar spine right above the iliac crest, hips, knees, ankles. Those are our 6 major points of balance. This is a great illustration from a great book, The Trail Guide to the Body. It's designed for body workers, but I'm not a true body worker in that sense. I don't do a lot of heavy tissue manipulation, but the pictures are so great. So great. The occiput is this bone here. Well, where is he? Oh, there he is, yes. This bone is called the occiput, this chunk of the skull, because when you're a baby, all these things are not connected up, and gradually they do become connected. So here's the occiput. And there are these 2 little bumps here, these 2 little condyles here at the base of the skull. And the top vertebrae has this kind of little pockets. We've got convex and concave, and they fit together very nicely. Does anybody know what the top vertebrae is called? I thought I heard it. Atlas. And why is it called the Atlas? Because in mythology, Atlas held up the world. So our top vertebrae is called the Atlas. And so joints are named for the 2 bones that are proximate. So that's the atlo-occipital joint, and that's where you balance your head on your spine. We're going to investigate that in just a moment here. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Give me one moment. We have 7 cervical vertebrae. Those are the ones between, and then the first rib, and that starts the thoracic vertebrae. How many cervical vertebrae does a giraffe have? 7. They're really big. But we both have 7 vertebrae in our necks. Now, bony structure-wise, it's really easy to see what a neck is. Yeah, right there. Got those 7 vertebrae. Another thing we're going to be talking a little bit about is your jaw. And we have one jaw, and that's this thing. It's this limb down here. One jaw. Your teeth and the top are embedded into your skull. I even hear doctors call this your upper jaw. It's like, wait a minute. Did I miss out on this in school? I don't remember being able to do that. So it's not really a jaw, but that's what they call it. So find your temporomandibular joints. You can wiggle your jaw back and forth, side to side. When you open your mouth, this is the action. You can't really feel that, but that's the action of that bone right there. And by the way, these are called temporomandibular joints, or TMJ. And if you have a problem with your temporomandibular joint or joints, that's a TMJD, which stands for dysfunction. So when somebody says to me, oh, I have TMJ, I say, I have knee, because they're both joints. And I do have knee, unfortunately. That's a sad thing. Now, some people think they have that joint mapped up here. Find that part of find it? Some people think that's where the joint is. Try to move your mouth how would you do that? Some people think the joint is here. They have it mapped down here. They are a crocodile. That's some pretty serious mismapping. Now, if you have your map accurately designed in your brain, because that's what your map is, it's a representation of yourself in your brain. If you have a really good map, someone like Michael Jordan, unreal. I mean, that man was one of the great movers of all time. And then you look at Charles Barkley and you think, how did that guy move? I mean, boom, 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 boom. 2 slightly different physiques there. So the map's good, you're going to move well, and you won't get injured, typically. The worse your map is, oh, I think my jaw joint's here. Good luck. You're probably going to do some damage to your real live TMJ. So along with the, got ahead of myself. So this is the same depiction, except we have some muscle and some skin. Masseter muscle, ounce for ounce, one of the strongest muscles in our body. Why? Because we chew and we talk. So take your fists, give yourself a little rub in there. That is never a bad thing to do. Just release that out a little bit. Now the trapezius muscle, the one that starts here, I'm pointing to where my trapezius starts, it goes all the way down there, right into the piano. So, wait a minute, does that mean my neck goes all the way down to my mid-back? Well, the musculature does. There's a lot of interfacing in here. This I usually call the steroid Clydesdale massive muscle instead of sternocleidomastoid. Lots of people overdo that. There's a lot of musculature here that we can tense up, and many of us do a really good job of that. If you tighten your neck, you're going to tighten your jaw. If you tighten your jaw, you're going to tighten your neck, you're going to tighten your tongue. So there's a good reason for not having a tight neck. Another illustration from Barbara's book. We are now going to locate our AO joints. So go underneath your ear flap, and I recommend pointing straight in rather than this, because then you're pointing up. So if you point straight in, behind your jaw, right up next to your ear canal, give yourself some pressure in, move around a little bit. That's where you balance, right in the middle. Right in the middle. We are not half notes. Some people have their, if you feel back here, you'll feel part of your spine, but the part that you're feeling is all of these little processes that are back here. It's not where you balance. You balance up by your jaw joints. If you pay attention to the bottom one there, if you took a, just cut off right about there, set that aside for later use. And what do you got here? You got a big old vertebrae in there. I imagine that there are very few people who had that mapped out as that big right here in their throat. I had a student once who walked around like this. And Barbara Conabo was such a great question asker. She would oftentimes just find the right question to ask. So I thought for a while, and I said, how much does your head weigh? And she said, 30 pounds. That's heavy. And I said, what's holding it up? He said, oh, kind of something like this. So she's got a navel orange on a pin. So once we got this sorted out, it only took her about a week to be able to release her neck. This is all muscles back here. Thyroid gland, air tube, food tube, a little bit of muscle in the front there, but the majority of the muscles in the back because your head's heavier in the front. You have to walk around like this all day. That wouldn't be any fun. This is where my lack of science knowledge really shows up because I have about a first grade understanding of most of science. But that's an ear, I know that. And right there, tucked inside, you can't quite get at it. I mean, you have to work at it, but you can't quite get at it because it's also embedded in bone here, which nature does when nature wants to protect stuff. Bury it someplace where it's hard to get at. And that's a pretty good spot, right in there. Well protected. This is the primary balance organ in our systems. Okay, here comes my science. Turn your head like that. That stuff goes, blah, 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 magic comes out. It's your head, you're over there, you're over there, you're over there. Almost instantaneous report to your brain saying that's where you are in space. The vestibular apparatus. Your AO joint's right there. To me, that's a signal that says the AO joint is really important because that's where you can throw yourself off balance. I can't go into a slump unless I go into downward pull. I can do all kinds of other wacky stuff. Okay, there I go. When I go into downward pull, when I change that relationship between my head and my spine, I can then go into downward pull. And this part of me doesn't like that. It's like, what are you doing? That's not the way it works, but that's what we do. Not half notes. So my advice is to avoid well-meaning but not very helpful advice. That business of sitting up straight, for example. No, we need to find balance. That's different. Anybody been told to pretend there's a string coming out of the top of your head? That's a good one. Well, show me what that would look like. You did that, yeah. Who's at the other end of that string? That's what I want to know. How would you get inside? All those twisting strings. And in order to imagine that, what did you have to do? You had to jam yourself up using your spine and the muscles surrounding it. So maybe instead, if I free my neck and I allow my head to balance on top of my spine, I have a better chance. And that's a skill we could practice, and we'll be talking about that shortly. That's what's at the heart of it, your spine. One hand at the base of your skull. I'm too lazy to turn my hand over, so I've got it right there. That's how long your spine is. I have a really hard time some days believing that one of these is in here. But it's true. Okay. So exploring our points of balance is a great tool for, I couldn't figure out how to get this thing to be the same size arrows. I apologize, but I was late last night and I thought, screw it, I'm not going to, they're going to be different sizes. Okay, fine. Okay, just to really quickly go through a couple of these. The number one at our AO joint, we've already discovered that, and I'm holding that it's true that that's one of the most important points of balance in our body. We're going to get to number 6 at the arm shortly, but let's stand up and explore a couple of the others. And you'll need to have your chair clear. You don't want to have your phone there or your water bottle or anything like that, because you're going to sit down very shortly, and that would be unfortunate. Find the top of your hips, your hip bones up there, iliac crests. So if you have your hands here, I always like to say, I'm a little sugar bowl. That's the teapot. So that's not your waist. Well, sorry, it is your waist. But waist is not an anatomical concept. Waist is a fashion concept. There used to be a slogan for the United Negro College Fund saying the mind is a terrible thing to waste. It's a great slogan. Barbara Conable would say a waste is a terrible thing to mind, which is true. But that is where all your weight, if you allow it and if you're well balanced, all your weight gets delivered through that point, right where the lumbar spine comes out, where the discs are. Doesn't that make sense? Good job, nature. Yeah. Now, it's very difficult to move just from there. It's really hard. But that's a major point of balance. Now, thumb on the top, fingers down, at least this far. I'm stretching to my maximum. And then you move around a little bit. Can you feel the head of the greater trochanter? Can you feel that underneath your fingers? For most of you, it's way lower than you thought. Do I have a volunteer to do this? No? So your hips are your geographical middle, not this business up here. Your hips are where your geographical middle is. Keep playing around with that. When we were talking about this in my training program, I got really into this. So if you want a seat by yourself on the bus, when you're at the bus stop, you could just try doing like this. You might get a whole section to yourself. And you should not be allowed to salsa dance if you don't know where your hips are. Look, I am salsa dancing not. Knees, flex your knees, ankles. Make sure you just notice them. Most of us don't pay any attention to your ankles. I sure do, because I broke mine 3 years ago. Now, this is not your hip joint. That's the head of the greater trochanter. Watch me come around the front, like so. And if you bend a little bit, yeah, that's where my hips are. Put yourself in front of your chair with your fingers pointing in like that, and give a good old handsome shove and bend your knees. That's not the way nobody sits. We tend to not sit that way. We tend to collapse first and then finally engage our hips at some point. But that is a much more mechanically advantageous way to sit. And if you have an older brother and the chair's not there, well, you can go into a squat. Okay. Sorry, I have to do math now. That's not my best thing. Wow. That took longer than I thought. Okay. So right now would be a nice time for a little break. Just 2 minutes, okay? And stand up, chat with your friends, but get out of your chair and do something movie. If you need to escape, if you can't stand this anymore, you're welcome to do that. But I got lots of trumpety stuff coming up. These slides are going to, these first couple are going to demonstrate a little bit more about the balance points that I've been talking about. This is a really quite a brilliant depiction that was, I can't remember who did this. I should have these names all in my mind, but I can't. And then taking it into real practice, here's somebody abusing themselves with the violin on the left. The other person looks pretty good to me. And then, of course, Michael Rabin, who, I mean, he just looked beautiful. And she's just cute. Oh, yeah. That's what we need. Okay. What's the point? I mean, really? Okay. That's some serious compression there. That dude looks pretty good. Looks pretty balanced. Can you read the caption? Oops! Yeah, we got those stock photos out there. We'll get those trombones. No, they're trumpets. They're brassy things. And that's just about as accurate. The man himself. Looks pretty good. You know, there are people who just, you know, fell off the fell off the radish truck onto the trumpet, and it was the right thing for him, like Bud Herseth. Tom Battenberg, who play at a very high level for 60 years. Just frightening. But it can be done. That is a whole arm. Which arm is it?
Right arm.
Why is it the right arm? Collarbone's in front of the scapula. If your collarbone is in back of your scapula, I can't help you. There's nothing that can be done. There are the joints, the main joints in your arm. There's one that most of you don't have mapped at all, and that's the one. He's pointing at it. The joint at your sternoclavicular joint. That is the only bone-to-bone contact in your arm structure. Your scapula is not attached to your ribs. Your humerus is not attached to your ribs. This is the only place. So, sternoclavicular joint, the glenohumeral joint, because it's a glenoid fossa is what's inside there, and then, of course, your elbow and your wrist. Let me know if I'm disturbing this streaming thing here, because I'm going to put my hands on myself here. I happen to have a very bumped out sternoclavicular joint on this side, so I have no trouble finding that. Find one of yours with your thumb, like so. My right arm, got my left hand, left thumb on my right clavicle. Then I put 2 fingers on the clavicle itself, and I do that thing at the bottom. Whip it around. That is a rotation. That is a rotational move. We have 3 rotations in our arm, and that's one of them. Now, if you don't have that mapped appropriately, you're not going to be able to do some stuff. There's some stuff that you literally will not be able to do. And if you can do it somehow, you're going to be fighting through it like crazy. Now, trace that same clavicle out, and you'll hit sort of a, oh, what's that? Well, that's where your clavicle meets up with your scapula. If you take your fingers and press down right on the top, that's your scapula. Rotate your humerus underneath that. This isn't moving. That's your scapula. Your scapula comes over and forms that pocket where your humeral head fits into. Nothing is attached to this. None of this is attached to your body, just the clavicle. This stuff is, for some people, how does it work then? Well, works pretty darn well. Now, I apologize for the trombone, but I've already shown you one trombone that's supposed to be a trumpet, so I apologize for that. But what we're going to do now is, if you're comfortable, and if you're not, you don't have to do this, but I would encourage you to do this, is just pair up with somebody. You know, pair up with your neighbor, okay? And you need to stand up to do this. So one person has their back to the other person. So somebody turns their back to the other person, okay? Now, take their wallet. No. So what you're going to do is you're going to find that other person's scapulae. You're going to place your hands on their scapulae. Right hand on their right scapulae, left hand lower on their back, like this, like so. Yeah. Now some people have, yeah, are you hypermobile? It sure looks like it. Some people, nice. Well, he's demonstrating something that I was going to mention, and that is that some people's scapulae, you can't find them because they're very flat to their torso. But this gentleman can raise them up like dorsal fins. That is basically the definition of hypermobility. And hypermobility is really great. If you live in Boulder and you're here during the summer, there's a guy who folds himself up into a box on Pearl Street Mall. The box is this big, and he's taller than me. That dude is hypermobile, which is really cool if you want to fold yourself up in a box. But if you want to carry anything heavy, you might dislocate your shoulder because those ligaments are so released. Okay, so find the scapulae, rest your hands there, and look up here at the top. Make all of those moves. Down and in, up and out, forward, back. Make all of those moves with your scapulae. Notice that your arm is moving along with that because that's what happens. It's all attached. Switch. Switch. Shoulder blades everywhere, down and back, up and in. Okay, one last thing, and that is, you do this for yourself. This is probably the easiest way to do it. Just hold onto one of your clavicles. Don't let it go anywhere, and try to move forward quite a bit. Just don't let it go. You will not get the 7th position, as it says on that slide. If you don't allow your clavicle to, whoa, check that out, and your scapula to move, all of that has to move in order to get full arm excursion. If you don't, I find this all the time with violinists. They don't understand that, and they get towards the end of the bow, to the tip of the bow, and they can't get there because they're not doing that. They're not allowing that release to happen. Humero, scapular rhythm. They go together. You don't hold one back and let the other one move. They go together. So in our freest movement, that's what's happening. I move every part of me that I can figure out every day. I mean, sometimes I'm just standing in the hall, just going like this. I don't care what people think. I'll do this at the credit union. I do not care. I do not care. I'm in much better health than a lot of those people are because I'm moving it all the time. Okay, you can have a seat again if you like. Ow! Stand back up. Pair up again. So what's going to happen is that the person who's in front, there's going to be somebody behind you, and they're going to be like this. So the person who's in front, you're going to pretend to bring up a trumpet, and the person who's behind is going to rest their hands on top of your, what people would call the shoulder. Just and rest. I'm not talking about grabbing and holding and gripping and ripping and tearing. Just rest your hands there. And both of you notice what happens when the fake trumpet comes up. And then take your arms down. Don't hold them there forever. And do it again. Take them down. Do it again. What are you noticing? Shoulders up? Shoulders are coming up? Okay. Yeah. Ooh. Apparently, stuff is happening. So what I'm hearing is that, and it's everybody's a little bit different, but there's a lot of action that's happening here. When I bring up my fake trumpet, you notice I'm not raising my shoulders. I'm not lifting up there, because I don't have to. My arms are pretty amazing. If I wanted to play the trumpet back here, somehow if I had a hole in the back of my head, I could do it. But I don't want to add in extra interference. On your own self, put one hand up towards your pectoralis muscle. That's the big one right here. And bring up that fake trumpet. Who's tightening that up? If you came over here and palpated my pectoral muscle, I'm barely engaging it. Flute players are the worst. They bring their flute up, and this turns into tensile steel. Now, how are you going to be able to move your fingers on your left hand if your left pectoralis muscle is cramming everything into place? Not to mention a violinist. So you guys, leave your shoulders be. Bring the instrument to you. Don't compress through here. Critically important not to do that. Okay, I'm not going to make you jump up one more time at the moment. So we've already talked about the first rotation of your arm structure. The second one is at your humeral head right here. It's a little hard to feel independently of the other rotation. But that's where it is. It's all the way up there. And we're going to experiment. Actually, I am going to make you get up again in a moment. How many people here have been told to rotate at their wrist? Yeah, rotate at your wrist. It's not possible to do. It is physically impossible to rotate at your wrist, and here's how to prove it. Do this. Now try to rotate. You can't do it. You can do all kinds of other really cool stuff at that point, but you cannot rotate. This is a rotation, and it occurs at your elbow. Do like so. Extend your hand as if you were to shake somebody's hand. Get your pinky at the very end there on the ulna. The ulna bone's the one that's at the very bottom at the back, and rotate. Supination, pronation. You'll feel the ulna move a tiny little bit, but it's the other bone which is called the what? Radius. Do you think it's called the radius because it goes around? No, probably not. It's absolutely called the radius because it goes around. I have a video here. If I have time, I'll show it to you later. It's a very cool video of a depiction looking straight down like this without this attachment. You can see the radius go whoop, whoop, whoop. So, this is such a great depiction. This is another slide from illustration McConnell's what every musician needs to know about the body. When you supinate, your bones are parallel. When you pronate, they're crossed. So sorry, I'm going to make you get up one more time. And you need a little bit of space, so you might want to turn sideways, because you're going to need to have your arms out. So I have my arms out, palms up, palms up. That's supination. And then when I pronate, like so, that's rotation at the elbow. When I turn my palms to the back, that's rotation. That's your humeral head. And when I turn them up again this way, that's getting all the way into your clavicle. Go back to supination, pronate, that's at the elbow. Now we're into the humeral head, and now we're into our clavicle. If you're finding yourself a little stuck in the practice room, pray for rain and move around like that. Movement is almost always good, but that will get those rotations in your head. It's like, oh, yeah, that. I'd forgotten about that. So here I am bringing up my trumpet again, and I look like that. That's not what we want. Okay. Yeah, we'll look at that. Wrist. Some people say your wrist is a hinge. Try hanging a door on this. You can have a seat if you like. I mean, this would be, it would take 5 people to close this door if this is the way the hinge worked. The wrist can have a hinge-like movement, but that's not all it does. There's so much possible movement there. It's a really interesting joint. Don't look at your hand. I'm going to use my right hand. I'm going to probe with my left hand. Do this with me. I've got my middle finger here, joint. This joint, you see which one I've got? Find that and put your fingers right on it. Don't look. Look at the outside of your hand. Makes perfect sense. What the hell? Yeah. If you map your hand out as being here, as the joint being there, you're going to have some real fun, because that's not where the joint is. Joint is there. Long fingers. Everybody follow me. Long fingers. Get your thumb moving all the way. The opposable thumb, one of our most magnificent things. The opposable thumb. Get in there and palpate that and move all the way back here. That's where it starts. It doesn't start here. It starts back there. Long, 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 long fingers. Last business here. The rest relationship is with your pinky aligned with your ulna. That's the rest relationship. Look like I'm just wash my hands. I'm getting ready to go into the operating theater. Nurse may have the gloves. That's the rest relationship. This, as you see at the bottom of the slide, that's ulnar deviation. Anytime we have deviation, that's probably not such a great thing. And I don't know about you, but if I do this for about 20 seconds, I'm going to hurt myself if I put some pressure on it. Now, if you're a pianist, I mean, you have to do that, but you don't just pound away in ulnar deviation all day long. You will, guaranteed, injure yourself. This is also the strength move. I have never seen anybody in a martial arts film being attacked like with ulnar deviation. I will kill you with my ulnar deviation. Strength, rest and strength. Is this stuff making sense? Again, this is, as I mentioned very early on, almost everything that I say during the course of this time is fact-based, anatomically based. I have a couple of opinions, but about this stuff, not that much. It's almost all just fact. And so if you have something else in your mind, we're going to get to a slide. And, well, is it this? Yes. Good for me. Breathing. I understand that trumpet players breathe. So I also recommend to string players that they breathe as well. Oh, I almost forgot. I cannot forget my collection. We are surrounded by inaccuracy in our world. Okay, everybody do that. That's all you got. I mean, that's all she's got. She's great at splits. That's all she's got. Now, on the other hand, if you have Yoga Barbie, well, unfortunately, she can rotate at her wrist, which is a little, look, Mom, I want to be able to do this. I don't know this. She's bending at some unknown place. And then this is also good with the feet going different directions. But it's a little bit more realistic. I mean, there are some real joints there. Of course, the dimensions are, you can't, no. There's not enough room in there for all of her organs, so it just doesn't quite work. Now, the problem with, I mean, I like my Barbies for my examples here, but the problem with when you buy Barbies from the same place online, you start getting solicitations for Fashionista Ken. I don't want Fashionista Ken. Reality. As Patrick McDonald, who was one of Alexander's students, said, the facts are friendly. So let's start there. I think reality should always come first. If you have metaphors or any other exercises you want to do after reality check, fine, as long as they don't interfere. And once again, we're going to be mapping structure, function, size. And I love Barbara's quote, we do not imagine our bodies, we perceive them. It's a big difference. Well, I imagine that, oh, what I notice is, ding. Oh, I loved this. It was so great. Wasn't here, someplace else. And I was talking about breathing and how breathing is dynamic movement. And this guy says, I don't move when I sing. I said, I'd like to see that. So he walks out, and of course you have to walk out. And the reason why the piano curve is there is because all these singers keep backing up into it. And just make that curve. Thank you for some of you for laughing. And so he walks out there and he goes, I said, too late. Breathing is dynamic movement. You have moved. I think he meant that he didn't just dance all over the stage. And as always, you've heard me say this before, don't interfere. So at an Alexander Nerdfest about 5 years ago, they asked me to do a talk on breathing, and I did a super deep dive. Oh my gosh, I almost didn't come back. And so I always start with the anatomical stuff, and that's where we're going to spend most of our time here because we don't have that much time left. Barbara Conable's work on the anatomical aspects of breathing, terrific. I want to change my name to Blandine Calais-Germain because I just love saying it. And so she's got an amazing book on, and as I mentioned before, I'm going to show you my email at the end, and I will send you these slides and a bibliography so that you'll have all those. Anybody know who Ian Bousfield is? No? Great trombone player. London Symphony when he was like 4 years old, and then 6 years old he was in Vienna. I mean, he was very young when he went to these positions. And now he's got a big solo career and doing a lot of teaching. He has a very intriguing take on breathing. And I could call up music. Our trombone professor Stanley here is very similar in this realm. I encourage you to go online. He's monetized a couple of his things, so you can't find as many as there used to be online, but it's very interesting stuff, worthy of your time. And then stuff that's more athletic or engaged or active. There are a number of yogic kinds of breathing that are, breath of fire and stuff like that. Those are typically set aside for, when you're doing that practice or birthing breathing. You don't walk down the street, or most people don't walk down the street doing that. So there's some categories. We're going to stick pretty much with the first one to begin with. And I came up with these myths. There are more, but these are the ones that I came up with. That support needs to equal force. Get that air low. And the air column that you could really legitimately create in your body would be about that long, tall. It would be like Stonehenge and This is Spinal Tap. If you don't know that movie, you must see it. This is Spinal Tap. Raising your clavicles to breathe. That's well, everybody does that. That clavicular breathing is like an all hands on deck kind of situation. If you've been underwater for a minute and a half, you'll use your clavicles to help you breathe. And then high sternum. Okay, everybody do this. Nobody can do that. That's advice that's typically given to slumping choristers. All right, ladies, get that sternum high. So we take our spine and we jab our rim structure up. That has nothing to do with your sternum. Yes, there are people who think that you create vibrato by using your diaphragmatic musculature, which is not possible. Lungs are not muscles. You cannot fill from the bottom up. That's not the way gas works. And that the ribs are a cage. That we have this really firm, well, it's a pretty crappy cage if it's a cage. So, no interference. Where am I? Okay. Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm just a little bit lost here. So, could I ask for your help? So we've got a lung here. Come on up here. So the lungs have an interface with the diaphragm, the big muscle here. When the diaphragm moves down, would you hold out like that? Just don't pull though. Okay. So here's a lung at rest, and because of the let's lung at rest. Breathe in, pull, and then just let go. That's what happened. No, not completely. My lung just. Okay. So then just release back. So this is what happens to your lungs, but it's not muscular movement that's happening. Let's turn so these folks can see. That's not a muscular reaction. They call it pulmonary elasticity. Thank you. Let's give her a hand. Yeah. Did a hell of a job there. That's a wonderful illustration by David Gorman. And take a look at that. Okay, who's in your pocket, Jim? So I'm getting ready to go out to the grill with Jeremy. We're going to do the manly thing, make some steaks, out there. So I get one of those butane lighter things, put it right there. Say, okay, Jer, what did I do with that? He's looking at me like, you're joking, right? I said, where is it? Oh, thank you. Any surprises there? Anything surprise you? That stuff? The waste disposal area? Yeah.
Just like a little thing.
Mismapping. That's a pretty big one. There's a lot of stuff down there. Anything else?
Stomach's a lot higher than I thought.
Stomach's right there. It's that organ right there. So when people tell me, oh, I sleep on my stomach, I say, that must be incredibly uncomfortable. How do you do it? There's your clavicle. Rest your hand right, or fingers right there. You're almost on your lung. Lung comes up above your clavicle. Rest your hands here, like so. Right there, there's the xiphoid process right there, a little tab. That's how far down your lungs go. That's it. That's it. Not down here. So, get that air low, guys. Get that air down there. I wish I could take credit for this, but it's Barbara Kahneman said, if you could get air from here, would you want it? That'd be what is that? The trumpet section's really, oh. So diaphragm is this dotted line there. You're going to see a whole bunch of pictures of it shortly. That's a lot of stuff, and if air gets down in there, you die. So we don't want air down there. Well, I didn't mean that really. You don't. Well, then say what you mean. Don't say what's not true. Now, does movement occur down? Absolutely. Without fail, movement occurs there. That's an old school depiction of the lungs and the heart. Heart's pretty big. Look at the size of those tubes. Trachea back there. Those are not helpful. That's what it looks like in there. Now, a lot of those passageways are microscopic. So we would literally need a microscope to see them. But if you could lay them all end to end, and you started here, you'd end up in Miami. Florida, not Ohio. 1,500 miles in length. That's how much you got in there. So if you think, wow, this is awfully small, but there's a lot of stuff in there. There's a lot of possibility for action. So, I'm sure I'm going to get myself lost here in just a few moments. Ribs move. When you breathe in, rest your hands here on you. When you breathe in, your ribs move out. You don't have to do big breaths. You can just do little tiny breaths. Even a little tiny breath will go. Sometimes when if I wake up in the middle of the night, which is way too often these days, and I can't get back to sleep, I'll just rest my hand here on my wife, and she'll go. I feel that up and down motion, and it's just kind of calming to me. And then I wake her up, and she's all pissed. And what are you doing? Never mind. I'm not here. And doing. So your ribs move like so. It's almost like a bucket handle kind of action, or a picnic basket movement. And as you see, come on, buddy. I brought you here for a reason. 24 breathing joints in the back where all the ribs are attached. 24 breathing joints here. These are complicated joints, too. They're not simple. Notice that ribs go behind the spine. 24 breathing joints. In the front, we got a different condition here. We got this cartilaginous type of material, and that's springy until you get to be my age, and it gets less springy. So, but this is, I used to do this with Jeremy. He just thought that was hysterical because this can be very springy material. Without this here, we would not be able to get full excursion. But that's the truth of it. So if you take your hands like so, you'd need 4 thumbs, but this is close enough. And breathe in. The lungs do not move the ribs. Lungs do not move the ribs. Well, Professor Brody, what does move the lungs or the ribs? That stuff. So it says muscles of inspiration, expiration. Inhale, exhale. Now, it doesn't mean you inhale on the right side and exhale on the left. He just wanted to put this all on one slide. So breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. So sternocleidomastoid muscle and the scalenes here, Those are accessory muscles to regular old inhalation. You don't use these muscles when you're just breathing or even breathing for trumpeting. You don't need them. It's interference. The external intercostals, they literally help to pull the ribs up. So that's what we were doing. Now I'm going to do one of my little party tricks here, and everybody can practice this, and you can do it yourself. Get your hands here. I'm going to take a breath, hold it, and then I'm going to move my ribs with my intercostals. You have to be careful not to jump up and down, but just use your intercostal muscles. We have direct control over those muscles, obviously, or I wouldn't be able to do that. And then when we want to be more active in breathing, the internal intercostals, they'll pull a little bit. And if we want to get really in the way of things, we'll over-engage our obliques and our rectus. The six-pack muscle. So let's do this. Make your abs really hard. Make them really tight there. Get them abs of steel, please. Make them really hard. Okay, you ready? Take a deep breath. You can't. That's interference. So, nice and springy on inhalation. My teacher used to say, no tummy, no tone. Well, joining him. So if you've always wanted six-pack abs, you don't have them, you can comfort yourself by looking at somebody who does have six-pack abs and know they're dying. A judicious application of that musculature for support can be in order. But if you over-tighten it, it's interference. You're just standing in the way. So you need to experiment with that. Diaphragm from below. Sorry, I need to catch up with myself here. And then that's where your diaphragm is. Lots of people I talk to, oh, my diaphragm's right here. Well, sort of. You're really touching your abdominal wall, that musculature that goes like this, but your diaphragm is like so. Notice that it's attached, it originates on the spine, comes up and attaches all the way around, as we'll see. That's an even more highly domed representation, depends on who the illustrator is. And that's a great view of how, boy, it acts, part of its job is to act as a separator between the upper part, lungs and heart, and all that other stuff that's down there below. Got to have a central tendon to pull against, because muscles only pull. That's all muscles can do. They can pull, or they can just go flaccid. So when this British dude talks about diaphragmatic vibrato, or even better, my German student Britta, who says, my teacher tells me that the vibrato is created with the intercostal muscles. See like a bunch of little buzzing bees out there in the flute section. That's not true either. Neither one of those is true. Are you going to work today? Yes, you are. You can put your own, make yourself a nice little dome here. Breathe in with him and breathe out with him. Breathing in is when the action happens. Muscle's working, muscle's no longer working. Muscle works and then doesn't. And because the diaphragm is attached all the way around, your ribs go out because it flattens and it shoves the ribs out a little bit. That's why we get that action. Abdominal wall. Not tremendously thick, and it's not just like a wrapper. You can see that it goes in different directions. There's that rectus again. That's the psoas muscle, P-S-O-A-S, that also originates at the spine right around where the diaphragm originates. That muscle is way deep inside our body. We really can't feel it. And most people do this. I'm going to just make like I'm tightening that psoas, and look what happens. I drag my spine closer to my legs. Most people have that perennially tightened. So, okay, now try to play the trumpet. That's going to be interference too. One last element of breathing in terms of the mechanism, the structures and movement of breathing is the pelvic floor. That's a shot right in through here where my hand is on the skeleton. I was doing a class for a choir a couple years ago, and there were some kids in a little child care situation off to the side, and this girl's probably about 5 or 6. She's coloring away, and she looks up and says, "Kitty." Little ears, little eyes, little nose. Yeah. Not really, but That musculature, for most of us, is just solid. We don't allow it to move. Now, if you've had children, you probably experimented with this muscle at least a little bit, because that's a muscle that needs to be worked with in childbirth. So on inhalation, the diaphragm up here goes down. This diaphragm goes that way. And if you can really allow that to release, you can get 15% more excursion throughout your breathing system. Who wants 15% more? I sure do. Now, as Barbara says, well, you experiment with tightening the pelvic floor and breathing and releasing it. I recommend that if you release your pelvic floor, that you, how shall we say this? Be careful the first couple of times you do it, because there's other stuff in that region that you might not want to get a surprise about. Many of us do not have the musculature of our upper torso mapped appropriately. One of my high-functioning violin students, this is the latissimus dorsi move, and it comes up and attaches to your arm here. He says when he gets his back balanced and that musculature is really well balanced and just where he wants, he says, that's the bow stroke that I want. When I get this in balance. He's using that muscle, but if he tightens it up too much, his bow gets really, he says it gets really, I think he uses the word cranky. Another view. So let's tighten all that musculature up. Tighten your pecs, tighten your arms, tighten your back. Now take a breath. Good luck. Because basically what you're doing is you're just blocking that rib movement that needs to happen to get full excursion of air. Pectoralis major, pectoralis minor, right underneath there. All of that musculature needs to be available. I'm not saying that it doesn't have to be toned, or it shouldn't be toned, but it needs to be available to us. And that's all the movements of breathing. That's what happens when you breathe in. Shaded area is when we start to inhale, and then the arrows and the darkened areas, that's what happens to us. And then reverse over here. That's an interesting arrow. That's an interesting arrow, yeah.
So like you said, muscles can really only...
One Direction, my favorite band.
One Direction, your favorite band. And so when you want to move, like exhale more air quicker, what's happening?
Well, most of us overengage. Right. We get a lot more stuff, like, all hands on deck. And that's what we do. Instead of working very delicately, assiduously, noticing how much we're applying and from where. You know, I play the oboe, which is it's troublesome. And I have found, this is a very short version of this because I've got a lot more to say, but I can talk maybe more about this later. This is my go-to, my obliques as opposed to my rectus. I really don't want to have this overengaged. Because if I overengage my rectus, what happens is that my ribs cannot move either way. They're stuck, and they call that splinting the diaphragm. So I have more to say about that, but I want to get through a couple of other things first. On inhalation, ribs are attached to the spine, diaphragm's attached to the spine. Something's got to happen to the spine. So what happens, it's measurable, but it's very small, and I'll exaggerate for effect. Usually I lie down to do this, but so if I inhale, on inhalation, your spine gathers together a little bit, and on exhalation, it lengthens. That's exactly counter to what most people believe. And so we get in there, oh, come on! And your body is saying, if you say so, but it ain't right. Nice cutaway here. Tongue's a big old thing. Have we all watched the Sarah Willis inside the MRI machine thing? If you haven't, it's so great because I desperately want to ask her, I said, did you know that's what was going on inside your mouth with your tongue before you did this? Because you can fill up the entire area or you can make it go almost completely flat there. Soft palate pops up when air is forced out. Most of us don't have our tongue mapped nearly that large. And I see I'm running behind, so I'm just going to have to keep moving here.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, yeah.
I'm going to interrupt. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
Hi. We do have 3 volunteers on the board. Are they all here? I'm just making sure that all of you are here. Raise your hand if you volunteered.
Okay,
They're there.
great. We probably only get to 2 folks. Sorry about that, but I'm happy to work with the other person outside of this situation. Happy to do that. There's your embouchure. The whole thing. Lips don't have any muscles in them, just specialized tissue. I had the great privilege to play with William Bennett, the amazing British flutist, God rest his soul. And you get up really close to this guy, and I'll exaggerate big for effect, and he'd be doing this while he plays. I'm thinking, what the hell's going on with him? Well, you move that stuff, and what's going to happen? It changes your lips. So one of his big calling cards was color, tone color. He changed his tone color dramatically and beautifully. And so he was doing it. And just to, smiling only needs 8 muscles, frowning needs a lot more, so it's better to smile than to frown. It's less work. That was supposed to be funny, sorry. Thank you. Now, I would recommend the book by James Nestor. And again, send me your email address and I will send you my bibliography. The book is called Breath, and he goes through these breathing strategies here. Some of them are a little, but many of you know about the alternate nostril breathing pattern, yes? Breathe in, out, in, out, but very slowly. There's all kinds of stuff about that online. And I can get down very quickly, because I practiced this for many years, I can get down very quickly to 3 air exchanges per minute without any problem, without feeling like, oh my God, I'm running out of air. The second one, shut your mouth, is oftentimes a good idea. But the indigenous people of this area, and many other indigenous peoples, when a child is born, someone's with the child all the time, and when the child starts to breathe through their mouth, they close the child's lips. The child becomes habituated to breathing through the nose, which we know for centuries, we've known that that's much healthier for you. So the young person is habituated to breathing through their nose. Now, if you're running after or running away from something, you're probably going to end up breathing through your mouth quite a bit. But typically, we breathe through our nose. Most people don't exhale enough. Humming, which is actually good for you, and it also has the extra added benefit of irritating people. And if you chew a lot, if you're a gum chewer, you're doing a good thing for your soft palate. You're doing a great job with that. That's somebody swallowing, which is really cool. And that's Sarah Willis inside the machine. Apparently, you're not supposed to use a computer. The descent of man is what I call that. Tools, what they make us do. You're on board, yeah? Would you be willing to play for us just a little bit? And your name is?
Evan.
Evan. Doesn't have to be very much, but it's nice if it's music. And people think, can I just play scales? I can play the theme from The Simpsons in 4 different keys. I mean, come on, man. You could make a few more sounds if you liked before you jump in for real. He's set. Okay. That's great. Yeah. I just love it when brass players mark their territory. It's so great. and then somebody will be dumping out their horn. I say, oh, it's just water. I said, then drink it. If it's just water. Okay, now what I do with folks is I guide their movement with my hands. Just make suggestions. I make every attempt not to be forceful, but I just guide their movement with my hands. So if you can just follow this directionality a little bit, that'd be great. You notice what's going on there?
Yeah.
What did you sense?
You brought my head up and down.
Oh, I didn't do it. If you weren't cooperating, you wouldn't have gone. Can you see a difference in his stature right now? Yeah. Looks a little bit more upright, a little bit more balanced. How do you feel in there? You doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
A little weird?
Slightly.
Yeah, well, no, somebody's palpating my neck all the time. Well, you got their hand in the back of my neck. There you go. And as soon as you brought up the trumpet, you locked your knees. You think it'd be possible to not lock your knees?
Okay.
Listen, it's just an ask, and basically I'm asking him, and he's going to ask himself. Not yet. He's going to ask himself, because it's always an ask. I demand. No, that's not going to work. I'm going to pay attention to my knees this time, and I'm going to see if I can just allow myself to be a little bit freer in my knees. And nice with yourself here too, okay? So bring that thing on up and just stay with me here. It's going to be a little different. Go ahead. Do you usually take a breath in there towards the end?
Right there, yes.
No, before that.
Yeah.
What I think you didn't take a breath that time that you usually do take. Is that true? I think that might be true. I don't know. What just happened? So when I start to work with somebody, in essence what I'm doing is I'm taking a little bit of control over their nervous system. And people, when I'm trying to put them into a chair, sometimes they can't get into the chair. So what do I do? What do I do? It's like their knees are just completely gone. So it's not strange that you wouldn't remember everything. So what I'm suggesting to him, to Evan, is that he balance his head nicely on top of his spine, which gives him an opportunity to free through here. And when you bring your arms up, that you don't tighten your arms forward or together. Not that you do this while you're playing the trumpet, but that you could. I don't think, that would look a little weird. But that you could if you so chose to. And that you not lock your knees through there. Make sense? Mm-hmm. I think it's all we're going to have time for with Evan today. So let's give Evan some. Wow, her own cheering section. And you are?
I'm Amy.
Oh, you can read music, okay. I hope this story is true. That so many, I think, are probably apocryphal, but Sir Thomas Beecham, famous conductor, middle part of the last century, and Toscanini and others were conducting, without a score, from memory, and someone said, "So Thomas, I see that you use a score to conduct." He says, "It's because I can actually read music." Just a little dig. And you are?
Amy.
Oh, Amy, sorry, I probably already asked that.
It's all good.
Amy?
Yeah.
But you blow a couple of notes and then let her rip, tater chip. Great, great. So you watched Evan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's anything that you're doing that he did? Oh, that's not what, no, that a little bit closer.
I feel like I'm sitting down. I don't know.
Oh, what a great way to put it. Just a little bit compressed through there?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my teachers used to call that going into your hips. Okay, there I am. Anything else that you're noticing? What else are you aware of?
My neck kind of, I don't know, didn't feel comfortable.
Okay, that's a good comment on yourself. Awareness is starting to build. Okay, my neck's not comfortable. And then what do? Well, got to have a different strategy. So if I free my neck, what does that look like in the mirror? Or if I make a video recording, What am I seeing? Observation. What about your knees?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
those knees are locked.
kind of stiff.
Yeah, very typical that bung, and it's really stable, but eventually that communicates up because it's all attached. And fascia is wonderful stuff, but you start grabbing your legs, why is my breathing not so good? Remember that psoas muscle that's in there. Okay, so if you could just, no, I'm going to say something that's going to sound really dumb. This is the first thing that you're saying that sounds really stupid? Come on. You're holding a trumpet, but you're not playing it. What does he mean by that? Well, you're holding a trumpet, but you're not playing it. What we know is that as soon as you start thinking about playing the trumpet, all those trumpet playing neurons start to fire. I'm not playing this right now. And then you might be able to release a little bit more through here. Follow my hands the best you can. Easy in the back of your neck. There you go. Weird?
A little.
Does it hurt?
No.
Thank goodness. Remember about your arms. You don't want to be grabbing, yeah, chicken dance. And then go ahead and bring that up. And go again. Pause for just a second here, because this is something that everybody can use. Start again, please, and then she can play it sideways. Start again, and then when you get to your first rest, and this is going to be tough, this is a challenge for anybody. Take a breath like this. And then go on. I mean, till next week. Well, we don't have that much time, but okay. Easy in the back unit. There you go. Take all the time in the world when you take that breath, okay? Breathe out, breathe out. Don't breathe in yet. Now breathe in, but don't take, it's not a real playing breath. Easy in your neck. There you go. Let go of those sternocleidomastoid muscles and go ahead. Take your time, take your time. Next week sometime, just all the time in the world. And whenever you're ready, take a breath in. And notice as you play along, you really like to add in efforting in your sternocleidomastoid muscles.
Yeah.
So what you can do is find yourself, anybody can do this, you find a way to set up your trumpet on a stand or whatever, and get yourself on yourself. And as soon as you start to, oh, wait a minute, that's when it happens. When I go to this register or I make this change, you stop. Start again. Until you cannot do that. Until you cannot add that extra tension in. That kind of practice is so fun. But if you're happy with the results you're getting completely, then keep doing what you're doing. If you're not happy with the results you're getting, you need to do something else. And this would be a great thing to do. What am I actually doing when I'm playing? I'm locking my knees. So I'm going to go up against the wall. Not difficult to play the trumpet up against the wall. My knees aren't locked. I'm getting really good support from here. Wow, there's a lot to be learned from doing that, going up against the wall. Amy, thank you very much for being. I'm sorry that I'm just going to have to do my quick finish up here because almost out of time. And I apologize to the person who was ready to go. And if you want me to work with you, I'd be happy to do it. You can do this sitting down, but it's best done standing up. So if you want to stand up, that's fine. If you imagine a clock around yourself, 12 o'clock's your nose, 6 o'clock's the back of your head, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Take your head gently, delicately, easily, as much from the AO joint as possible to 12. And you spend 30 seconds there. And then you bring it back to neutral. And then you go back to 6 o'clock, No forcing. Typically what happens is as you move into these things, your muscles will release a little bit and you'll go a little bit further, then back to neutral, then 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. If you want to get really frisky, you can go to 10:42 and do an asterisk basically like that. 30 seconds. 30 seconds each direction. 4 minutes out of your life, you might release your neck. Or you certainly get more information about what your neck is. That's a really great thing to do. Lift your shoulders up. Way up, way up, way up, and let them go. Pull them down, pull them down, pull them down. Well, way up. Lift them up again. Right by your ears. Then pull them down, pull them down, pull them down. Lift them up one more time. This time, just let them be. Just let them come down. Most of you will end up someplace that's higher than when you started. That's a really great, wow, yeah, I have a lot of range of movement up, but not so much down. That's a lot of pressure. And then you do that last one down. And it's the same way with sitting. Have a seat. And let me show you one thing here. Where is balance, Professor Brody? Well, let's find out where it isn't. Follow me. No. I'm rolling back on my pelvis. I'm melting. And then shove. Look at my navel. And then roll back on your pelvis. And be nice to your neck. No. Shove. Now you do that 5 or 6 times, and then you do this. As you come back, slow, release your legs, slow. Oh. I'm on my rockers. I'm balanced. Oh, I'm melting. And you're going to go back and forth. That's something you can do in rehearsal. Again, I don't care what people think. So you might not want to be doing that in rehearsal. But it's a great, if you're not, do something like that. Remember that one. That's another good one for just keeping yourself moving. And exploring your hips, knees, and ankles. And then every once in a while when you sit, give yourself a nice shove like that. So, average human head, 10 to 12 pounds. If you're upright, and everyone uses their cell phone like that, then that's a 0-degree angle, and your head will weigh 10 to 12 pounds. Notice as we go along the line there, by the time we get to what most people do, I see this every day, your head weighs 60 pounds. Your spine is not designed to handle that. Your neck musculature is not designed to handle that. We all do it. Well, I don't. I just don't do that. I mean, there are things I look at and say, that's not what I want to do, because that is really bad for you. So if you find yourself doing that, every time I walk in the building, there's somebody on that bench out there with their computer like this. I don't say anything. I'm sure you're all going to want one of these. So this is a device that you put on your forehead. So when you're walking down the street on your phone, it'll beep at you when you're about to hit something. Really? I just put my phone in my pocket. That would be my response to that. If nothing else from this entire time that I've been yakking at you, here's a great thing to do for yourself. In the Alexandrite world, we call this constructive rest. That's the position that you take on. Books under the head, you'll figure out how much you'll need. It's based on the tension in your neck and what your construction is. Some people need a lot of books. Some people don't need very much at all. And we use books, not cushions, because we don't want that to change. Your foot-to-butt relationship may change over time. Just want to be sure that you feel comfortable, because that's the most important thing in constructive rest. And if you don't do anything else, you rest your being. There's all kinds of strategies for constructive rest, some of which I could share with you. If you send that to me in your email, I can send you some strategies. If you have a pet, a dog or a cat, dog or the cat gets tired, what does the dog or cat do? They lie down. We don't. One more repetition. And taking breaks is incredibly important. Your brain doesn't like just hammering away, and your body doesn't like it either. Studies are starting to show that 2 minutes shots at something is the way to go. 2 minutes, 30 seconds off, 2 minutes, 30 seconds off. I have lots more to say about that, but not today. My admonitions to you, I always rely on reality-based situations, or solutions rather. Now, if at some point you decide, hey, you know, like I want my tone to sound like flowing water, great. But you don't want your tone to sound wet. So let's get the reality first, and if you want the flowing water later, let the water flow. Balance, remove interference. That's what our goal is. If we can remove interference, then we can access primary control. And as Alexander said, the right thing does itself. It's what I do. Now, number 4, I'm sure everybody in this room does that, right? No. It's not a sign of weakness to be nice to yourself. Rex, and then, as I like to say, I forgot the other word there, be patient and persevere. That's my advice to anybody about anything. But, you know, trumpet's a complicated thing, complicated device. So be nice to yourself. So we are out of time. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them, or if anybody wants to talk to me about trumpeting or anything else, I'm happy to do that. Thanks for your attention. Now go off and play the trumpet.